Guys, thank you for joining me today. Can you quickly both introduce yourselves before we jump in?
My name's Martin Jones. I'm the CEO of Homestead in the UK and also our international side of the business. So that's covering 12 countries. But my main focus here today is our UK business.
Right. And your second time on the podcast as well?
It certainly is. Come back.
Welcome back. And Sanjeev?
Hi, I'm Sanjeev Kaushal. I'm the Director of Care and Quality for Homestead UK. So I am responsible for all our quality standards and franchise standards across the UK network, but also try and think about where is home care in the next 3-5 years. So where do we create new services, new value, and try and lobby for change from a thought leadership perspective as well.
So today we're going to be discussing home care generally, a little bit less about franchising in a broader sense, and we're talking today about our specific sector, but more importantly, the future of this sector. So I think we've got two good people on it today to talk about that. So Martin, I'm going to start off with a really, really broad question here. What do you think the main drivers of growth will be for the home care sector? And then Sanjeev, I'll come to you after.
Okay, the main drivers of growth are going to be, obviously, the whole sector is growing exponentially with the age wave. There's more people over the age of 85 than below the years of 15. So that represents a great opportunity for the home care sector, great opportunity for Homestead. But also as well, what we're seeing in terms of support that's given by the government, the NHS, etc. There's more going to be coming towards the social care. We have to do more in the home to look after people safe and well. And in other words, that represents choice for our clients and for the public at large. They want to be looked after in their own home. They don't necessarily want to go to hospital or a facility. That's where they want to be. So I think choice is going to drive it. Market share and marketplace is going to drive it. And also in terms of the government itself, they're all talking about at-home care and community care. So social care is so well placed.
Got any thoughts on that, Sanjeev?
Yes. So I think having worked in the NHS and having been a clinician, completely agree with Martin, but also I think if you look at the broader health system, the NHS is significantly underfunded. It's been on a downward trajectory for a number of years. We've got over 60,000 nurse vacancies. So that creates lots of opportunity for more capability within the home care. So that means that actually we will be providing more clinical tasks, more clinical services in the comfort of a client's home, which is great for client experience. I think furthermore, we know budgets are being really stretched. So integrated social care with GPs, hospital services is going to be the way forward. And as Martin's mentioned, social care is absolutely front and centre of the community healthcare sort of pathway. So great opportunity for us to be more embedded in the future.
Just pick up on what Sanjeev said there about underfunding. I think for me, funding is always going to be an issue. But I think from an underfunding perspective, I don't actually see the NHS being underfunded. I see the health and social care necessarily being underfunded, but also where the funding goes. There's far too much goes at the back end, which is the NHS, which is kind of the sticking plaster rather than prevention. We need to actually bring that curve forward. We need to focus on the care continuum, but at the start of the care continuum, not the end. So is it underfunded? I think it's misappropriation of the funding that's there because there isn't going to be any more funding. It's going to be a very tight funding, particularly in the economic climate, political climate we've got. So it's pushing more towards the social care spectrum. Again, great opportunity for us.
Definitely. And I guess, so what I see in the kind of the franchising world is definitely an increase in the number of home care providers that are out there. Do you think it's in response to the points that you guys have just raised, or is it solely to do with people recognising the ageing population?
I think there's more people than there was. When I started 13 years ago, there was 5 franchises. I think there's over 26 now.
Yeah.
So, but obviously the sector's grown, so obviously that's attracted, good quality brands either from overseas or self-starters to get into the marketplace. So, but it's not just within franchise and the whole business sector. There's more private equity. There's more venture capitalists coming into the sector because they can see. And actually, that comes back to my choice argument. That's what people want. It drives good competition. So, yes, there's more in the sector. That drives more choice. But obviously, in terms of home instead, that's why we continue to be the number one in terms of the model that we offer and the great rate of return for our franchisees, not just in terms of profit, but also the difference they make.
Sanjeev, do you have any thoughts? So kind of on that point, there's now 26 home care providers within franchising. How do we as Home Instead continue to differentiate?
I think when I joined Home Instead nearly 2 years ago, the first thing I said to Martin was, this sector, but also Home Instead has so much further potential. We're only scratching the surface, I think. Yeah. We've done a great job with relationship-based care, the companionship, personal care, home help, and all the other great services. But as clients continue to live longer, they take more medicines, they become more complex, their needs start to become far more complex. And that's what allows Home Instead to be absolutely front and center, because we are investing in growing capabilities, in our care professionals, but furthermore, we're seeing technology have a more significant part in our own home. No one very rarely has, goes without having a phone, and it's with that phone technology and the wearable technology that will create an ecosystem for clients where we can provide tech-based care without losing the human touch, which is absolutely fundamental. So I think we're not worried about competition. I think competition does drive you to continue to innovate, and we're never been very complacent about that, because we believe in doing what's right by the clients. But I think innovation is really, really healthy, and it will allow us to really think smart and be more creative. How can we allow clients to live their fullest life in their own home?
So Sanjeev, you touched on something there, kind of about the more medical side. We're calling it hospital at home Instead. Could we sort of hear from you both about what that means for Home Instead and what you think that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's different terms. There's hospital at home, there's virtual wards, and they are slightly different. But I think hospital at home, in its very basic definition, is how can hospitals discharge patients, clients far more quickly, but also have some form of oversight without a client taking a bed. And for that to happen, you need some form of technology. And in the guise of virtual wards, that is Bluetooth paired technology, like a blood pressure machine, a pulse oximeter, for example. And the client would take those readings, and it's a piece of software that then pings that reading straight to a hospital ward, where somebody then can track somebody's vital signs and make an intervention without somebody taking vital capacity in the NHS. I think when you look at a macro level of the technology, when it comes to hospital at home, it's not uncommon, for example, in the US markets, to have very complicated individuals being treated in their own home with artificial oxygen, for example. I recently read that you can do X-rays in the home. Wow. And still be monitored through cameras. So you've got cameras that can detect changes in facial signs and signals, and then you've also got the hardware to check blood pressure, for example, and oxygen levels, and also mobility, just to see if somebody's had a fall or somebody's had a trip. So the technology is there. It's about how do you embed it, make it right for clients, so it's not intrusive, but it becomes part of their care.
Right. Yeah. Have any thoughts on hospital at home, Martin?
Yeah, I think I'd flip it, if I'm honest. I think hospital discharge is one element, but for me, it's an element, but not a massive element for us. I think the big part for us is how can we prevent our clients going into hospital? At Home Instead, and the way we provide the care, and now we're moving to healthcare at home, actually is part of that prevention. Coming back to that, community care, which, the government's talking about, the social care element is talking about, and then touching upon technology. The older person today isn't the older person tomorrow. So the acceptance of technology will continue to grow, because at the moment there's quite a reluctance, but most, 99%, if not 99.9% of the technology that exists out there now, we're doing onto people. Right. Rather than thinking, well, how can an older person embrace the technology? How can they think, well, this isn't big brother watching me. And I'll give you a fantastic anecdotes in terms of, you used to have the pendants round the old person, and we used to be in charge of a call centre for a charity I'm involved with. And it was 7:00 on a Saturday night when they pressed that pendant. The reason for that is because Britain's Got Talent. And the older people would press the red button when Simon Cowell said press the red button. And that is fact. So we had to staff up the call centre, and that's where technology was done onto someone else. They didn't actually understand the why.
They're misusing it.
They're misusing it.
Right.
And Homestead is about that prevention. Social care is about that prevention. If we can take that load away, as I said before, up front in the care continuum, Homestead were just ideally placed to stop people going to hospitals, because hospital is the last place that you want to be.
So it can effectively be applied at both ends as a preventative aspect,
100%.
and then it helps with people's
100%.
return to home and stops, I guess, the cycle of readmissions and things like that.
Yeah, 100%.
Can I just jump on something
Please,
that
yeah.
Martin said?
Please,
So
Sanjeev.
we've got some really great examples where, with the forward planning that our offices do as part of the care continuum, if you start to detect things at a very early stage, like frailty, for example, it's fact that you can reverse frailty, you can prevent frailty, and you can also reduce the onset of frailty. And we've got those live cases in the Homestead network. So absolutely agree, we should spend more time in the prevention space. But when that time does come, when they are sort of diagnosed with a condition, try and manage that condition, particularly long-term conditions, because that is also on the rise. So 1 in 4 above the age of 40 will have some form of long-term condition. So you'll become iller early on in your life, but be iller for longer. And how do you then make sure people have the independence, the quality of life, without them feeling like they're a patient locked up in their own home? We want to really allow them to live their best life.
Because people now want to age well.
100%.
So the person who is 70 today, if you look back a decade ago, what that person, 70-year-old, looked like was very different. And again, a decade before that. So looking forward, a person who's going to be 70 in a decade's time will again be very different. And that comes down to expectations. It comes down to lifestyle. I don't see we'll have older people sat in chairs and throwing balls to each other. That's not how people are going to keep well. And again, that's doing unto someone. People want more choice. And again, that comes down to Homestead and why we're so well placed in terms of fitting that choice for our people as they age.
And could you give me a little bit of information about, so we've delivered many types of care until this point, and there's a certain level of compliance that you kind of have to meet to do that. How does it look different and change when it comes to healthcare at home services? I'm guessing there's a difference in sort of the training and maybe qualifications that care professionals have to have.
Yeah, so I'll take that one. So
take that
healthcare at home is essentially allowing clients to receive more healthcare support that they ordinarily would have potentially received through their GP practice or in an acute hospital. So the good news is that all the investment in our training for personal care, companionship, healthcare at home builds on top of that in terms of the competency-based training, the policies that we write, and then the online training that the care professionals have to read and sign off.
Right, yeah.
And then they're supervised to make sure they can do the task and have got the knowledge to safely deliver that task. But more importantly, we don't operate on our own. We work very closely with the consultant in charge or the GP in charge. So there's really close integration of what we're allowed to do. So it's called delegated healthcare services. They delegate the task. And then the client is engaged, they're involved, everything is documented, the family can see what we've done, and then we pass that information on to the responsible clinicians, just so they can see what's being done. So the quality is far more superior. I think what I will say, we've got a dedicated clinical lead nurse. I'm a clinician by background, so we've got a nurse and pharmacist leading this proposition. Is that actually our clinical governance standards have been validated by the Department of Health. So we sit on the working group with the chief adult social nurse, and I think we're the only franchise home care provider doing this, and we're setting the bar really high, and we're sharing those learnings for obviously for the greater good of the sector. But we're really proud about that, and we're delivering at least 16, 17 different complex services today, with over 50% of the network doing some form of healthcare home services. So it's already happening, and we're doing a really great job.
obviously you can see from what Sanjeev just said, at Homestead, we're head and shoulders in terms of the quality they provide and the links we've got with the DHSC. But also the most important bit about this is we're taking all that regulation, all that compliance, all that training and blending it into relationship-led care. And that's what's always made Homestead very, very different. How can you take the regulations? How can you take the compliance? Because they can be followed reasonably easily by anybody, but actually blend it into a relationship-led model.
Right, yeah.
So you need to do the task, you need to do the compliance, you need to be obviously regulated compliant. And as Sanjeev even said, we've gone the extra mile on that and the training we offer our care professionals. But we have to get that relationship led. And that evolves, also blends into their technology as well. So whatever we do, what makes us different and what drives the extra quality for the client, the extra training for the care professional, and delivery for franchise owners in Homestead is that relationship-led model that we have.
And there's something that's sort of springing to mind here. I'm thinking with a franchisee or a potential franchisee's hat on. So someone's listening at home and they're considering a home care franchise with Home Instead. This might sound to them like there's more now to consider. And it might be even more complex. Maybe they've not even got a background in care. So the companionship and home help and personal care is already something new to them. Could you maybe explain how we package it in and actually, reassure people who might be thinking about this as their future?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Sanjeev, and you can leap in if you like. We look for people who actually haven't got health and social care knowledge.
Yep.
The rationale behind that, you're not indoctrinated in the way things have been done in the past. You've got freedom of thought in terms of how you're going to operate your business. The whole reason of buying a franchise is, like Home Instead, you've got that support that wrap around you, give you a hug in terms of the Home Instead way. And again, that's the easy bit. The easy bit is learning the tasks. The easy bit is learn the regulation. The easy bit is knowing what's expected of you in terms of a regulated provider. The hard bit is actually bringing the leadership. The hard bit is bringing what's in your heart, the culture and the values. And obviously we're also looking for, a background in, a well-established background in business. Our businesses are more complex, you said before. So Homestead is going to different markets, as you said before. The Homestead average office now is growing exponentially, 20% growth year on year. So we need those leaders of tomorrow to drive that through. The rest, in terms of we can teach you, you can. There's loads of great courses in the sector, but we need that freedom of thought from people who aren't restrained by the sector itself to think, what can we do different? If you look to most of the care providers, not just in franchising, outside of the franchising arena, who's actually making a difference and being innovative within the sector, and also the NHS, they're not healthcare professionals in the main. The people have come outside the sector and looking at the complete new lens in terms of what we can make a massive difference. So, Homestead, I would say, don't be worried, reach out, speak to us, have the conversations, because that's the model. That's good franchisors like Homestead provide that support to grow the business.
So in a way, nothing really changes. Our support doesn't. We might talk about different things, but our support's the same.
Yeah.
It's there for all service types.
Yeah.
And effectively meeting the kind of the compliance aspect is much the same too.
Yeah, it's just evolved over the 20 years now that Homestead's been in the UK.
Yeah.
It's evolved on a global basis. That 30 years we've been a global provider. And it'll continue to evolve.
Yep.
It's like any good business and any good strategy. You need to know where you start, where you want to go to, and the why. And you just keep on going around that circle.
And I suppose as the technology continues to increase, all those points that you mentioned about changing expectations along with aging, it will just continue to evolve, won't it? So we kind of have to move with it.
100%.
I think the only addition I would make to Martin's point is any support that we write does have a lens on how do you commercialize it, how do you operationalize it, and how do you deliver the quality. And nothing that we write or is released into the network isn't checked or reviewed or contributed by existing owners who will probably be from a non-healthcare background. So for us, the support is very practical. It's designed for healthcare people, but also non-healthcare leaders as well. So we make sure that the support that we do provide is operationally ready.
Yep.
Key ready is the term we use. So you can lift it and off you go and do your peer support as well.
Real. Thank you, guys. I think that'll be really helpful for certain people. So we did just touch then on the home instead model kind of adapting and changing with the landscape. Can you maybe share some ways in particular how the model has evolved and maybe the impact that it's had on clients?
I think we have a term called a care continuum, which is not our term, but essentially it's about following the care needs of a client all the way from prevention to end of life. And I think the answer is always there with the client if you listen hard. And we have touch points, we do risk assessments, we do service reviews, but you also have a lens of what's coming. So somebody could be, for example, be a type 2 diabetic, but actually you can see their condition is deteriorating. So how can we build some form of support before the client actually needs it?
Right.
So it's that forward thinking, that forward planning, I think is something that Home Instead have done for a very, very long time. I think the other thing is we've had a number of technological successes. So let's talk about maybe the razor chair, for example, where we always find that the NHS struggles with A&E waiting times, and when somebody has a fall, particularly if you're older, then it can lead to significant complications like a hip or knee replacement, for example, and that results in infection. They never end up coming out of hospital. But we trialed this razor chair technology, which if somebody was to have a fall, it's a piece of technology that allows the client to be safely erected up without damaging the spine. And then you do an assessment, and that prevents most of the time a paramedic from being called out, which obviously is a massive saving, which means that they don't need to come to us, they can go to somewhere else. So those technologies have actually been proven. And then if you wrap that around with fall sensors or proximity sensors, or even wearable technology like smartphones and smartwatches, then that starts to give you a bigger picture of how the client is behaving. Yeah. Those are, for example, some of the technologies. I think one recent one is that we're caring for quite a complex multiple sclerosis client. We've got a few actually across the network requiring a tracheostomy, which is artificial sort of insemination of a plastic pipe to keep the lungs from being opened. And actually when we were working with the NHS Trust, what they said was actually your standards are on par with the ITU, which was great actually to hear that from the ITU consultant, but also just gives our care professionals so much confidence that actually we're working to a really high standard anyway. Yeah. And a lot of reassurance for the consultant. So actually we've saved an ITU bed, which sometimes can be about £2,000 a night, but that client then is living their best life. So those are the types of technologies, not just in technology, but also pushing the boundaries of how can we support the local health system, but do right for the clients as well.
I think innovation comes in different ways as well. So, technology is one aspect of innovation, but, Home Instead's always been quite innovative in terms of the way it provides support for the care professionals. So, with the first healthcare business and social care business to have a care pro council, you may say, well, why is that innovative? Because we're actually speaking to people and that make the massive difference on, the front end. So we canvass them, we learn from them, and that shapes our strategy, that shapes, in terms of the technology we're looking at, that shapes the way that we train, support our care professionals. And we also do the same for franchisees. So we have a franchise exchange council, another aspect where we're constantly talking to the people. We also have a care managers conference, and again, talking to the care people at the front end. So all those different aspects, right from the owner, right from the care manager into the care professional, we've got that triangle of communication to keep that feeding into the model, feeding into the business, to make our decisions. Because sometimes if you're too remote, or you can, we've got over 255 offices now, you can feel quite remote from the client. Those touch points are critical to keep it connected and true, really.
So to save the information passing through several people, you actually go straight to those people who are living it every day.
100%. And we do an annual survey to all our care professionals, all our key players in the office, and obviously our 12,000 clients, and we get about 5,000 client responses a year, and most of those are paper-based. Most marketing businesses, would kill for that sort of data. If you look at any polling, it's pulled off a lot less than 4,500 that we get back. And we use that because that feeds into the model. It feeds into what we do. It feeds into our operation and makes us, change path. It's made us change path in the past in terms of how we support our clients. So yes, you're right. How can you speak and liaise and canvas and support the people at the front end is critical for any business, but particularly a franchise business where you've got different stakeholders.
So Sanjeev, you mentioned the razor chair before. I think that sounds really, really interesting and probably helps even take the distress away from the client as well as kind of the impact on the NHS too. Does this mean robots caring for clients? Does this evolve to the point where the human touch is taken away? Be really interested in both your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I think the answer is no. In short, we mustn't ever forget that we're dealing with human beings, and whilst there's so much advancement with technology and robots, they lack wisdom. They lack compassion the way we're used to. So there probably is a role for technology and robots at some point, but we will never lose sight of how important it is to have the high human touch, because that's what really matters. That's what we're founded on, is our relationship-led care. Our relationships are made through deposits, contributions. So the way we see it is absolutely, I think that there will be a place for technology, particularly some of the things we've talked about, back office. How can we become smart? How can we make the right decisions? How can we release capacity to really care for a growing, aging population if capacity doesn't grow? But I think that's how we see it, Martin.
I think I am led to believe, and I read an article and seen an article recently, that Elon Musk in 2 years' time will have 200,000 robots out in society, not free, but obviously in terms of open to the general public. That's fact. If you actually look at some of the robots now, because of AI, they can actually sense what you're wearing, they can know what colour, etc., etc. They're actually doing a lot of making a coffee, doing the dishes, doing local errands. So how can we blend that, the high-tech, high-touch? So I think Sanjeev's right. There's certain elements of providing care to someone in their own home that can only have to be done by a human. But in time, 10, 15 years ahead, there probably will be some elements of robotic care in terms of the back-of-house care, the task elements of care that actually a robot can do quicker, simpler, and more effective. Now, whether that's going to be affordable, etc., is a different thing. But it's interesting there's these 200,000 robots which will be out there in the marketplace. Not that long ago, who'd have thought, we'd have self-drive cars in 5 years' time? There's going to be self-drive cars everywhere. So we have got a problem in society whereby, we haven't got enough people to look after our elderly population. That's a fact. So something has to change. And what Homestead is doing, particularly from a global perspective, is how can you take the technology which is coming up and blend it with the relationship-led model to provide the best of both. So I'm not saying tomorrow there's going to be a robot in your home. I'm not saying in 5-10 years there's going to be a robot in your home. But who'd have thought prompting systems like Alexa were providing medication reminders, etc., 5 years ago, and they are today. Who'd have thought we'd have hospital wards in the home like they are today? So how can we do the high-tech, high-touch, keep that relationship model, but use the latest in technology? Because I think it can be quite frightening. But as I said before, the older person's today isn't the older person's tomorrow. And it's the acceptance of technology. There's been a lot of great technology around for years, but it's the acceptance that has stopped technology being actually pushed through in terms of how can we support older people. That will change because the people's acceptance will change. But it's how you do the blend. That's the most important thing.
So if you take away some of the tasks that effectively take up time in a care
100%.
visit, that doesn't mean the care visit's shorter. That doesn't mean a human's not going to turn up. What it actually means is you can spend quality time with that client.
Yeah, and that's what it means at home instead.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's what it means in the rest of the sector, because a lot of the technology out there at the moment and a lot of the technology that's being developed is about saving time that the carer goes to a person's home. We're not about that. We're looking for technology, as you correctly said, is how can you get the best of both worlds that takes away some of the task element. You still keep that minimum of hour, but the rest of the hour is spent with the client.
Yeah.
Because that is a prevention in itself. Loneliness is a big issue. And again, if you can really spend time with the client and helping the client and stimulating the client, that is prevention and actually stops hospital readmissions, et cetera, et cetera. So it's getting that blend of both. But again, that's where home instead is and continues to be very unique and hasn't changed. The model, social care model hasn't really changed in 20 years.
So long as it doesn't reduce care time or take away that human touch,
100%.
actually it enables and props things up rather than replaces it and reduces its quality.
Like all good technology should do. It should take away, how we produce cars is very different now. It's all robotics, but it doesn't mean to say there isn't elements of human touch. It's how it's getting that blend. And the same will go to robotic care. It's how you get that blend of what the robots and different things can do back end to provide more care and interactive care with the client. It's got to be.
So, Martin, I've got another question for you. How do you think Home Instead can play a part in the wider care continuum?
I think where we are very different than most of the people in the sector and our competitors is that we are owned by Honor Technologies. And home care is just one aspect of how you look after someone in their own home. There's the whole ecosystem in terms of who provides the transport, who provides the groceries, who provides maintenance in the house, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what we're looking at now is a platform. So not only will that platform provide care for Mrs. Jones in her own home, where the care pro goes in, providing a great quality care, but also starts to enable us to, when there's, say, milk in the fridge, running down the milk in the fridge, via the app, the care pro will order the milk, so it's delivered by whichever grocery provider delivers it the next day at 10 o'clock when the care pro is in their own home to put it into the coffee ready for the client. That's true quality home care. That's where you're giving really the client the choice to stay in their own home, because it's when the care pro's not there, ensuring the client's got that sense of well-being, that sense of support, and that's where these wrap around. So a platform for older people, the whole thing that surround the older people's care. Home care, as we know it today, is only going to be one element of it. What we're moving to do with having, obviously, Honor behind the home instead is we're moving to a different type of care in the home, which is going to be very different for the sector and very different than our competitors, but most importantly of all, needed by the clients and the clients' families as well, because it's support for them.
Mm-hmm. You got anything to add to that, Sanjeev?
I think the principles what Martin said is absolutely spot on. I think what we're talking about is holistic care. So personal care, companionship care, nail care, they're kind of just facets of the total package. And if we can be all things to aging clients beyond the personal care, which is medicines, whether it's nutrition, hydration, making sure a client doesn't go without, beyond the care element, I think would be a great step up change. And what Honor and Home Instead are doing is extremely exciting, particularly from a clinician's perspective. What the great idea is the way they're thinking about how they can really unlock value to the clients and friends and family. I think it's going to be a massive game changer, and it's absolutely exciting, particularly for the UK business, to say actually what can we leverage from that will make sense for our UK market.
So our discussion could keep going, and there's plenty of food for thought. But I want to leave the listeners and the viewers with some advice from you both, I guess. What advice would you give to people interested in buying a home care franchise, or more specifically, a Home Instead franchise?
I think for me, it's do your homework. Have a look at what's out there, get to know the sector, but most importantly, link with the why. This business is going to be the most rewarding thing you'll ever do. But it can be hard at times. It's 24/7. So you've got to have it in your heart to make a difference for older people. You've got to have that entrepreneurial spirit. You've got to have that, great business acumen and background, be great with people. But if you've got those things, it's kind of just do it. Just take the punt. Speak to our network, because the future's bright. The future's purple. What we've talked about, we're class leading. We continue to be class leading in both home care and franchising. And the reason for that is because you've got ethical people, both at UK and globally, in terms of always looking at how we can provide better quality care to the clients we serve. How can we provide better quality support to the franchisees as well, better quality training to the care pros, whilst listening to the wider ecosystem of business leaders, family and friends, and the social care sector as a whole. So do your homework, get your plan together, and just take the leap, because you won't regret it.
Very hard to top that, Martin. But I think what I would say is all those things are absolutely essential. But I think here at Home Instead, particularly as the franchisor and within Honour, we won't settle for second best. We have high standards. We always want more, because that's what our clients deserve. They always want more. Their needs are changing. So do your own homework, do your own diligence, but we won't stop growing. We won't stop innovating. And Martin, in particular, we do a lot around thought leadership to try and change the stereotypes with the aging population. And we definitely want to change that, particularly globally, not just across the UK. So we want to do those things that are really difficult and take time. But we also want to push ourselves for the greater good of our clients to make sure Home Instead and Honour is a brand that outlives all of us, because that's what clients deserve.
Mm-hmm. Future is purple, as you said, Martin.
Absolutely.
Certainly is.
Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Luke.
Luke.
Really, really useful
Thank
for
you.
people, and appreciate your time today as well.
Thank you very much.